The space around Earth shimmered like water, and then the ships appeared. Commander Kythera stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. After 30,000 years of traveling through the deep darkness between stars, they had finally returned home. Well, not home exactly, but to the place where they had left their watchers. "Status report," Kythera said to her crew. "All systems working perfectly, Commander," replied her second officer. "The long sleep worked as planned. Our bodies are strong and our minds are clear," Kythera nodded. The Velthari had mastered the art of long-distance space travel thousands of years ago. When they wanted to explore far places, they simply put themselves to sleep and let their ships carry them through the void. Time meant nothing when you could sleep through centuries. "Begin scanning for the outpost," she ordered. The outpost should be easy to find. They had built it 30,000 years ago on the southern continent of this small planet. It was a beautiful thing made of living crystal that grew deep into the ice. Inside, their scientists had watched the primitive creatures that lived on this world. The creatures had been interesting but simple. They walked on two legs and used basic tools made of stone and metal. They fought each other often and died young. The Velthari scientists had predicted it would take at least 50,000 years for these creatures to develop any real intelligence. "Commander," the scanning officer called out, her voice strange. "I cannot find the outpost. What do you mean?" Kythera moved closer to the scanning station. "The southern continent, it looks different. The ice is mostly gone. There are structures everywhere, but they are not ours." Kythera stared at the readings. Where their outpost should have been, the scanner showed something impossible. Cities. Huge cities with towers that reached into the sky. Green forests where there should have been white ice. And energy readings that made no sense. "Are you certain this is the right planet?" she asked. "Yes, Commander. The star patterns match perfectly. This is definitely the third planet of the system we left our outpost on." On the planet below, in a building that sparkled like glass and reached high into the clouds, a young man named Jiho was working the night shift. He watched screens that showed him the space around Earth. His job was to look for anything unusual. Tonight, something very unusual had appeared. "Director Yaren," Jiho called into his communication device. "You need to see this." Yaren was at home, sleeping peacefully next to her husband. The call woke her up instantly. As the director of the Global Space Defense Initiative, she was used to being woken up for emergencies. "What is it, Jiho?" she asked, already getting dressed. "Ships, Director. Big ones. They just appeared near the outer edge of our space. The energy readings are, well, they're like nothing we've ever seen." Yaren's blood went cold. For the past 15,000 years, humans had wondered if other intelligent life existed in the universe. They had found the answer long ago, buried under the ice of Antarctica. Now it seemed that other life had found them. "How many ships?" she asked, running toward her vehicle. 7 large vessels, Director. They're not moving toward us yet, but they're definitely scanning our planet." 20 minutes later, Yaren stood in the Global Defense Center, watching the same screens that Jiho was monitoring. The ships were unlike anything in human design. They looked like they were grown rather than built, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like water. "Have they tried to communicate?" she asked. "Yes, Director. But it's strange. They're sending signals toward Antarctica, to the exact location where we found the ruins." Yaren felt her heart beat faster. The ruins. 15,000 years ago, human explorers had discovered something amazing buried deep in the Antarctic ice. A structure made of crystal and metal, clearly built by someone who was not human. Inside, they had found technology that had changed everything. Humans had studied that technology carefully. They had learned from it. And they had improved it. "Send a response," Yaren ordered. "Use the mathematical language protocols. Let them know we received their signals." Back on the Velthari flagship, the communication officer suddenly straightened up. "Commander, we are receiving a response to our signals." "From the outpost?" Kythera asked hopefully. "No, Commander. The signals are coming from multiple locations across the planet, and they are using mathematical concepts that are not in our databases." Kythera felt something cold move through her chest. Mathematical concepts not in their databases? The Velthari had spent thousands of years studying mathematics. They knew every possible way that numbers could be used to communicate. "Show me," she ordered. The communication appeared on the main screen. It was definitely mathematical, but it used ideas that seemed to build on Velthari principles while going far beyond them. It was like seeing a child's simple drawing suddenly transform into a masterpiece. Commander, her science officer Eugen said quietly, these signals suggest a level of mathematical understanding that equals or exceeds our own. That's impossible, Kythera replied. When we left, the creatures on this planet barely understood how to make fire. Perhaps, Eugen said carefully, things have changed more than we expected. Kythera stared at the planet below. The simple creatures they had been watching were supposed to still be simple. They were supposed to be thousands of years away from real intelligence. They certainly were not supposed to be sending mathematical messages that impressed Velthari scientists. Prepare a diplomatic shuttle, she ordered. We're going down to investigate. Commander, should we contact the home fleet first? Her second officer asked. Kythera considered this. Protocol said they should report back to the Velthari High Council before making contact with any species, but Protocol assumed they would find their outpost exactly as they had left it. No, she decided. We investigate first. Then we report. As the shuttle prepared to launch, Kythera looked once more at the planet below. Something had happened here during their long absence. Something that changed everything they thought they knew about this small blue world and the creatures who lived on it. Soon, they would find out exactly what that something was. The Velthari shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Commander Kythera watched through the viewing port as the planet's surface grew closer. Where she expected to see ice and snow, she saw green forests and gleaming cities that stretched as far as the eye could see. Landing coordinates confirmed, the pilot reported. The signals are directing us to a large structure at the former location of our outpost. Kythera nodded, though she felt deeply confused. The structure ahead of them was enormous, made of materials that seemed to blend metal, crystal, and something else she couldn't identify. It was beautiful in a way that reminded her of Velthari architecture, but different, evolved. As their shuttle touched down on a platform that appeared to have been specially prepared for them, Kythera saw figures approaching. They walked on two legs just as she remembered from the old observation records. But they wore clothing that looked advanced and they moved with confidence. The shuttle door opened and Kythera stepped out with two of her officers. The air was clean and warm, nothing like the frozen wasteland this place had been 30,000 years ago. A human stepped forward from the welcoming group. He was tall with dark hair and kind eyes. When he spoke, Kythera nearly fell over in shock. Welcome back to Earth, Commander Kythera, the human said in perfect Velthari language. My name is Minho and I serve as Earth's first contact ambassador. We have been waiting for your return for a very long time. Kythera stared at him. Not only was he speaking Velthari, but he had used her name and rank correctly. How could he possibly know who she was? You speak our language, she managed to say. Minho smiled. We speak many languages here on Earth. We have had 15,000 years to learn. 15,000 years? But how do you know our language at all? Another human stepped forward, a woman with intelligent eyes and a warm expression. My name is Soyon, she said, also in perfect Velthari. I am what you might call a cultural anthropologist. We learned your language from the records you left behind. Records? Kythera's science officer Eugen spoke up. What records? The ones in your outpost, Minho explained gently. When our people found it 15,000 years ago, we were very careful to preserve everything. We have spent centuries studying your culture, your history, your science. We wanted to understand who you were and where you came from. Kythera felt dizzy. Our outpost. It still exists? Oh yes, Soyon said, though not in the way you left it. Would you like to see? They walked together toward the massive structure. As they got closer, Kythera began to notice details that made her heart race. Some of the architectural elements were definitely Velthari in design, but they had been changed, improved, made into something new. Your outpost became the foundation of our first major city in this region, Minho explained as they walked. We call it New Antarctica now. About 12 million people live here. 12 million? Eugen gasped. That's just this city, Soyon said cheerfully. Earth's total population is now about 15 billion. We've also established colonies on 37 other worlds. Kythera stopped walking. Other worlds? You have space travel? Yes, we've been traveling between stars for about 8,000 years now, Minho said. Your technology gave us an excellent starting point, though we've made some improvements along the way. They entered the structure through doors that recognized their approach and opened silently. Inside, Kithara saw something that took her breath away. The lobby was clearly built from the central chamber of their original outpost. She recognized the crystal formations and the energy patterns, but everything had been expanded and enhanced. Humans moved through the space with easy familiarity. Some were clearly workers or visitors, but others wore uniforms that suggested they were scientists or engineers. Many of them nodded politely to the Velthari visitors as they passed. "Your people seem very comfortable with alien visitors," Eugen observed. "Well, you're not our first contact with other species," Soyon explained. "We've met 17 different intelligent races in our travels. Though you're the first to visit Earth in person? 17? Kythera felt like the ground was shifting under her feet. "Yes, though most of them are quite a bit less advanced than either of our peoples," Minho said. "We've been sharing knowledge and helping them develop their civilizations. It seemed like the right thing to do." They rode an elevator that moved so smoothly Kythera couldn't tell they were traveling. When the doors opened, they stepped into a vast chamber filled with displays and exhibits. The sign above the entrance read, "Museum of First Steps" in several languages, including Velthari. "This is our museum dedicated to the journey from planetary to galactic civilization," Soyon explained. "Your people played a very important role in that journey." Kythera walked slowly through the exhibits, her mind reeling. Here was a perfect replica of a Velthari laboratory. There was a display showing the evolution of space travel technology, from primitive rockets to faster-than-light travel. And everywhere she saw references to how human scientists had built upon Velthari discoveries. "You preserved all of this?" she asked quietly. "Every detail we could," Minho said. "We felt it was important to honor those who came before us. Your people were our first teachers, even though you didn't know it at the time." They stopped in front of a large display that showed the timeline of human development. Kythera studied it carefully. According to this timeline, humans had discovered the outpost 15,000 years ago. Within 2,000 years, they had achieved spaceflight. Within 5,000 years, they had developed faster-than-light travel. Within 8,000 years, they had established a galactic presence. "This is impossible," Eugen whispered. "No species develops this quickly." "We had excellent teachers," Soyon said with a smile. "And we've always been good at learning and improving things." "But the mathematics alone," Eugen started. "Oh, you mean the signals we sent to your ships?" Minho asked. "Yes, we've made some advances in mathematical theory. We had to, in order to improve your faster-than-light technology." "Improve our technology?" Kythera asked faintly. "Would you like to see?" Soyon offered. They were led to another section of the building, this one clearly dedicated to active research. Through windows, Kythera could see laboratories filled with equipment that looked both familiar and completely foreign. A young woman in a lab coat approached them. "Commander Kythera? I'm Chae-Young, the director of Xenotechnology Research. I've been studying Velthari science for most of my career. It's an honor to meet you." "You study our science?" Kythera asked. "Well, it was our starting point," Chae-Young said. "But we've moved quite a bit beyond the technology you left in the outpost. Would you like a demonstration?" Before Kythera could answer, Chae-Young led them to a device that hummed with energy. "This is our latest communication system," she explained. "It allows instant conversation across any distance, even between different galaxies." "That's impossible," Eugen said immediately. "The physics don't allow for instant communication across such distances." Chae-Young smiled. "The physics you know don't allow for it. But we discovered some new principles by expanding on your original theories." She activated the device, and suddenly a voice filled the room. It was speaking in a language none of the Velthari recognized, but the translation appeared on a screen next to the device. "Hello, Earth," the voice said. "This is Colony Ship Harmony, reporting from the Andromeda Galaxy. All is well here. We've made contact with 3 new species this month." Chae-Young turned off the device and looked at the stunned Velthari. "Your people gave us the foundation," she said kindly. "We just built on it." As they walked back toward the shuttle, Kythera's mind struggled to process everything she had seen. The primitive creatures they had left behind had not only survived, they had thrived beyond all possibility. They had taken Velthari science and made it better. "We will need to report this to our High Council," she said to Minho. "Of course," he replied. "We would be honored to meet with them. We have much to share." As the shuttle lifted off from Earth's surface, Kythera looked down at the cities spreading across the continent. Somewhere below them, the foundation of their original outpost still existed. transformed into something greater than they had ever imagined. The primitive species they had been watching had become their equals, perhaps even their superiors. The next morning, Commander Kithara stood in the conference room of the human facility, trying to understand what she was seeing. The walls displayed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy that showed more detail than any Velthari chart she had ever seen. "Good morning, Commander," said a human who entered the room. He was older than the others she had met, with gray hair and confident bearing. "I am Tae-hyun, Earth's Minister of Xenotechnology. I hope you slept well." "As well as can be expected," Kithara replied. Her sleep had been filled with strange dreams about impossible cities and mathematical equations that her mind couldn't quite grasp. "I understand you would like to see more of what remains from your original outpost," Tae-hyun said. "I thought we might start with our Historical Preservation Center." They walked through corridors that seemed to blend the best of human and Velthari design. The walls were made of the same living crystal that the Velthari used, but it had been shaped in ways that seemed more organic, more alive. "Your people have changed our crystal technology," Yujin observed. "We found that it responded well to biological programming," Tae-hyun explained. "Instead of just growing in predetermined patterns, we taught it to adapt and evolve based on the needs of the people using it." They entered a vast chamber that took Kithara's breath away. In the center stood a perfect recreation of their original Outpost command center, exactly as it had been 30,000 years ago. But surrounding it were dozens of other displays, showing how each piece of technology had evolved over time. A woman approached them, wearing the simple robes of a scholar. "Commander Kithara," she said with a respectful bow, "I am Chae-young, director of the Museum of First Steps. I have studied your people's culture for my entire career." "You have studied our culture?" Kithara asked, still struggling to accept what she was hearing. "Oh yes," Chae-young said enthusiastically. "Your outpost contained detailed records of Velthari history, going back 50,000 years. We have learned about your homeworld, your colonies, your science, your art. In many ways, I know more about ancient Velthari civilization than most modern Velthari do." She led them to a display case containing artifacts that Kithara recognized immediately. They were personal items that had belonged to the scientists who had worked in the outpost. Tools, decorations, even small toys that reminded the scientists of home. "We preserved everything we found," Chae-young said softly. "We felt it was important to honor the people who had been here before us. They were our first teachers, even though they never knew we existed." Kithara picked up one of the items, a small crystal sculpture that changed color based on the holder's mood. It had belonged to her predecessor, Commander Zethus, who had established the outpost all those years ago. "This was personal," she whispered. "We know," Chae-young said gently. The record showed that Commander Zethus carried it with her from her home world. "She looked at it every day while she was stationed here. We thought you might want to take it back to her family." Tears formed in Kithara's eyes. The humans hadn't just taken their technology. They had preserved the memory of individual Velthari who had lived and worked here. "There's something else I think you should see," Tae-hyun said quietly. They moved to another section of the museum, this one dedicated to human technological development. Kithara saw the progression from primitive stone tools to advanced spacecraft, but what caught her attention was how often Velthari influence appeared in the timeline. "Your people provided the foundation for our leap into space," Tae-hyun explained. "But we didn't just copy your technology. We studied the principles behind it and found ways to improve them." "Improve them how?" Yujin asked skeptically. Instead of answering, Tae-hyun led them to a laboratory where a young man was working with equipment that hummed with familiar energy. "Commander, this is Kyung-min, one of our quantum engineers." Kyung-min looked up from his work and smiled. "An honor to meet you, Commander. I've been working with Velthari principles for years." "Show them the communication breakthrough," Tae-hyun suggested. Kyung-min's eyes lit up. "Oh, you'll love this." He moved to a device that looked like it was built from pure light. "Your people developed faster than light communication, but it still took time for messages to travel across galactic distances. We found a way to eliminate that delay completely." "That's impossible," Yujin said immediately. "Nothing can travel faster than instantaneous." "You're right," Kyung-min agreed. "Nothing can travel faster than instantaneous. But what if we don't make the message travel at all?" He activated the device, and suddenly the air in front of them shimmered, A three-dimensional image appeared, showing a woman sitting at a desk in what was clearly a spacecraft. "Hello, Earth Control," the woman said. "This is Captain Minji aboard the exploration vessel New Horizon. We are currently in the Andromeda Galaxy, investigating a nebula that appears to contain unusual energy readings." "Captain Minji," Kyungmin replied, "we have visitors from the Velthari fleet. Would you like to say hello?" The woman in the image smiled and waved. "Greetings, Velthari friends. Welcome to our little corner of the universe. How do you like what we've done with the place?" Yujin stared at the image. "This is real-time communication? Across galactic distances?" "Completely real-time," Kyungmin confirmed. "We discovered that if you create a quantum entanglement field using your crystal technology, but tune it using biological neural patterns, you can establish instant connections across any distance." "Neural patterns?" Kithara asked. "Human brain patterns," Kyungmin explained cheerfully. "It turns out that human thought processes create a unique quantum signature that can be used to bridge space instantly. We're not sure why it works, but it does." The woman in the image laughed. "Still working on the theory, Kyungmin? You've only been at it for 50 years. Science takes time," he replied with a grin. After the image faded, Taehyun led them to another laboratory. "We've made advances in other areas as well," he said. "Energy generation, materials science, biological enhancement. Would you like to see?" They spent the next several hours touring laboratories where humans worked with technologies that built upon Velthari science, but went far beyond it. Kithara saw humans who had enhanced their own bodies to survive in space without protection. She saw energy generators that produced more power than entire Velthari colonies consumed. She saw materials that were stronger than anything in the known universe. "How is this possible?" she finally asked. "No species develops this quickly." "Perhaps," said a new voice, "it's because we had the right teachers." They turned to see a young woman approaching. She wore the uniform of a high-ranking official, and her bearing suggested great authority despite her apparent youth. "Commander Kithara," Taehyun said. "Please meet Minji, Humanity's Secretary of Galactic Affairs." "Secretary of Galactic Affairs?" Kithara repeated. "Yes," Minji said with a smile. "We've been active in galactic politics for several thousand years now. We represent about 40 different species in the Galactic Council. You represent other species? Many of the younger civilizations asked us to speak for them," Minji explained. "We have a reputation for being fair and honest in our dealings. It seemed like the right thing to do." Yujin spoke up. "This is all very impressive, but I still don't understand how you developed so quickly. Even with our technology as a starting point, this level of advancement should have taken hundreds of thousands of years." Minji exchanged a look with Taehyun. "That's an excellent question," she said. "The answer might surprise you. Would you like to know the real secret of human advancement?" "Please," Kithara said. "We never tried to simply copy your technology," Minji explained. "Instead, we asked ourselves a different question. We asked, what were the Velthari trying to achieve, and is there a better way to achieve it?" "A better way?" Kithara asked. "For example," Kyungmin called from his laboratory, "your faster-than-light travel uses massive amounts of energy to bend space. We asked ourselves, what if instead of bending space, we convinced space to move for us?" "Convinced space to move?" Yujin looked confused. "Space has quantum properties," Minji explained. "If you approach it the right way with the right intentions, it will cooperate with you instead of fighting you. Your people tried to force space to do what you wanted. We learned to ask politely." As they walked back toward the main entrance, Kithara's mind reeled with everything she had seen. The humans hadn't just learned from Velthari technology. They had completely reimagined what technology could be. "I need to contact my fleet," she said quietly. "Of course," Taehyun replied. "You're welcome to use our communication system. It's somewhat faster than yours." As Kithara prepared her report, she realized she faced an impossible task. How could she explain to the Velthari High Council that the primitive species they had been watching had become their superiors in every measurable way? And more importantly, what would the High Council do when they learned the truth? 3 days after her tour of the human facilities, Commander Kithara found herself in an uncomfortable position. Half of her crew wanted to stay and learn from the humans. The other half wanted to leave immediately and warn the Velthari High Council about what they had discovered. The argument was taking place in the main conference room of her flagship, with Earth hanging like a blue jewel outside the viewing ports. This is a threat to our entire civilization, insisted Zethrian, her military advisor. He was an older Velthari with the scars of many battles and a deep distrust of change. A species that advances this quickly cannot be allowed to spread unchecked through the galaxy. They've already spread through the galaxy, Yujin pointed out calmly. They have colonies on dozens of worlds and represent 40 different species in the Galactic Council. If they were a threat, wouldn't we have heard about it by now? Maybe the reason we haven't heard about it is because they've been hiding their true nature, Zethrian argued. Think about it, Commander. They speak our language perfectly. They know our history better than we do. They've been studying us for 15,000 years without us knowing. That sounds like preparation for conquest to me. Kythera rubbed her temples. She had been having the same argument with herself for the past 3 days. Everything about the humans seemed peaceful and helpful, but their rapid advancement was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. There's another possibility, she said quietly. What if they're not a threat at all? What if they're actually the solution to problems we haven't been able to solve? Before Zethrian could respond, the communication system chimed. Commander, her communications officer reported. We're receiving a message from the planetary surface. The humans are requesting permission to come aboard. For what purpose? Zethrian demanded. They say they have a proposal for us. Kythera considered this. Against her better judgment, she was curious about what the humans might propose. Grant them permission, but maintain full security protocols. An hour later, Kythera found herself facing 3 humans in her conference room. She recognized Taehyun, the Minister of Xenotechnology, and Minji, the Secretary of Galactic Affairs. The third human was new to her, a man named Shungwan who introduced himself as Earth's Secretary of Galactic Affairs. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Shungwan said politely. We understand that our rapid development has raised some concerns among your people. That's one way to put it, Zethrian muttered. We'd like to propose something that might address those concerns, Minji said. A mutual exchange program. What kind of exchange? Kythera asked. Taehyun leaned forward. We would like to share our technological advances with the Velthari people. In return, we would appreciate access to your star charts and introductions to other civilizations you've encountered. Zethrian laughed harshly. You want us to help you spread your influence even further across the galaxy? Actually, Shungwan said mildly, we want you to help us help others. Many of the younger civilizations we've encountered are struggling with problems that Velthari wisdom could easily solve. Your people have thousands of years of experience with interstellar civilization. That knowledge could prevent a lot of suffering. And in return, Zethrian pressed, in return we share our advances in energy production, space travel, and communication, Minji said. Technologies that could improve life for every Velthari citizen. Yujin spoke up. You mentioned energy production. What kind of advances? Instead of answering, Taehyun activated a small device he had brought with him. A holographic display appeared showing energy readings that made Yujin's eyes widen. This is the output from a single human energy generator, Taehyun explained. It produces more power than your largest facilities, but it has no waste products and requires no fuel. That's impossible, Zethrian said automatically. We've learned to ask energy to help us instead of forcing it to work for us, Minji explained. It turns out that if you approach fundamental forces with the right attitude, they're very cooperative. Over the next several hours, the humans demonstrated technologies that seemed to violate basic laws of physics, engines that moved spacecraft by convincing space to flow around them, communication systems that worked by creating friendship bonds between distant particles, manufacturing systems that asked raw materials to organize themselves into useful shapes. How do you do it? Eugene asked, fascination replacing his skepticism. We stopped thinking of the universe as something to be conquered, Xionghuan explained. We started thinking of it as something to cooperate with. When you approach physics with respect instead of force, amazing things become possible. This is all very impressive, Zethrian said, though his tone had become less hostile. But I still don't understand why you need us. You're clearly more advanced than we are. Because advancement isn't just about technology, Minji said seriously. You have something we lack, experience. You've been a galactic civilization for much longer than we have. You understand the political complexities, the social challenges, the long-term consequences of rapid change. We've made mistakes, Xionghuan added. Big ones. There have been 3 wars between human colonies in the past 8,000 years. We've accidentally destroyed 2 planets while trying to improve them. We've created technologies that we later realized were dangerous. You need wisdom to go with your power, Kythera said, understanding beginning to dawn. Exactly, Taehyun confirmed. And the Velthari are known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom. Zethrion was quiet for a long moment. What would this exchange look like in practical terms? Joint research projects, Minji explained. Velthari scientists working alongside human engineers. Cultural exchange programs. Shared exploration missions. We learn from your experience, you benefit from our innovations. And the other species in the galaxy? Kythera asked. We work together to help them develop safely, Xionghuan said. Many civilizations are at critical points in their development. They could benefit enormously from the combined wisdom of both our peoples. Eugene was studying the holographic displays that still floated around the room. This energy technology, he said slowly, it could solve the power crisis that's been affecting the outer colonies. Easily, Taehyun confirmed. We could have generators installed within a few months. And this communication system, Eugene continued, it would allow instant contact with every Velthari settlement in the galaxy. Every settlement, every ship, every individual who wanted to be connected, Minji agreed. Zethrion looked troubled. This is all happening very fast. Change this rapid can be dangerous. You're right, Seungwon said, surprising him. That's why we need your guidance. Humans are naturally inclined toward rapid change and experimentation. We need partners who can help us slow down when necessary and think through the consequences of our actions. You're asking us to become your advisors? Kythera asked. We're asking you to become our partners, Minji corrected. Equal partners in the development of galactic civilization. As the meeting concluded, Kythera found herself facing a decision that would affect the future of both species. The humans were offering technologies that could revolutionize Velthari society, but they were also asking for a level of cooperation that had never existed between different species. I will need to discuss this with my crew, she said finally. Of course, Xiongwan said. Take all the time you need. But Commander, there's something else you should know. What? Our long-range sensors have detected a large fleet approaching from Velthari space. They should arrive within the next few days. Kythera felt her blood run cold. The High Council? We believe so, and based on the size of the fleet, they're not coming for a diplomatic visit. As the humans left her ship, Kythera stared out at the blue planet below. The High Council was coming, and when they arrived, they would expect to find a primitive species that needed guidance or elimination. Instead, they would find a civilization that had surpassed their own in every meaningful way. The next few days would determine whether that discovery led to cooperation or conflict, and Kythera wasn't sure which outcome would be better for the galaxy. The Velthari High Council fleet emerged from hyperspace like an angry storm. 50 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a planet, took position around Earth's solar system. Their weapons were powered and their shields were raised. Commander Kythera watched from her bridge as the flagship of the fleet approached. The Council's ship was 3 times the size of her own vessel, its hull decorated with the symbols of absolute authority. On board that ship was Council Regent Morthak, the most powerful individual in Velthari society. Commander Kythera, came the cold voice through the communication system. You will report to the flagship immediately. Bring your full survey records. Kythera closed her eyes for a moment. She had spent the past 3 days trying to prepare for this moment. But she still wasn't sure how to explain what they had found on Earth. Prepare my shuttle, she ordered. An hour later, Kythera stood in the council chambers aboard the flagship, facing 7 of the most important leaders in Velthari civilization. Morthak sat in the center, his ancient face showing no emotion as he studied the preliminary reports. According to your initial message, he said slowly, the primitive species on this planet has somehow acquired our technology. That is correct. Regent, Kythera replied carefully. And you have determined that they stole this technology from our outpost? Kythera took a deep breath. No, Regent. They found the outpost after we had already left. They studied our technology and improved upon it. Improved upon it? Morthak's voice was dangerously quiet. You are saying that a species that was barely using metal tools when we left has improved upon Velthari science? Yes, Regent. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Finally, one of the other council members spoke. Commander, are you certain you have not been deceived? Perhaps they are using some form of mental manipulation. I don't believe so, Council Member. I have seen their technology with my own eyes. I have walked through their cities. I have spoken with their scientists. You have made contact with them? Morthak demanded. Without authorization? Yes, Regent. The situation was unprecedented. Morthak stood up, his robes flowing around him like shadows. Commander Kithara, you have violated the most basic protocols of first contact. You have endangered our security by revealing our presence to an unknown species, and now you claim that this species has somehow surpassed our own technological capabilities. That is correct, Regent. This is impossible, another council member declared. No species develops this rapidly without outside interference. They must have stolen our technology. Before Kithara could respond, the communication system activated. Regent Morthak, came a calm voice speaking perfect Velthari. This is Dongyun, Prime Minister of Earth. We request permission to address the High Council. Morthak's eyes widened with shock. How did they access our secure communications? Their technology is quite advanced, Regent, Kithara said quietly. We are prepared to come aboard your ship if you prefer. Dongyun's voice continued. We have much to discuss. Absolutely not, Morthak snapped. We will not allow these creatures onto our ships. Then perhaps we could meet in neutral space. Came another voice, this one belonging to a woman. I am Jiwan, Earth's Minister of Science. We have prepared a demonstration that we believe will interest you. Against his better judgment, Morthak found himself curious. What kind of demonstration? A solution to the energy crisis that has been affecting your outer colonies for the past 500 years. Morthak felt his heart skip a beat. The energy crisis was one of the most closely guarded secrets in Velthari society. How could these aliens possibly know about it? We are monitoring your communications, Jiwan explained, as if reading his thoughts. We don't mean to intrude, but we couldn't help but notice that many of your colonies are struggling with power generation. We think we can help. 2 hours later, Morthak found himself aboard a human space station that had appeared seemingly from nowhere in the space between Earth and the Velthari fleet. The station was beautiful in a way that reminded him of traditional Velthari architecture, but it felt more alive, more organic. Welcome, Regent Morthak, said a human who stepped forward to greet them. He was tall and confident, with the bearing of someone used to command. I am Dongyun, Prime Minister of Earth. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. This meeting is not an agreement, Morthak replied coldly. This is an investigation. We are here to determine whether your species poses a threat to galactic civilization. Of course, Dongyun said politely. We understand your concerns. Would you like to begin with the energy demonstration? They were led to a large chamber where a woman was working with a device that hummed with power. Regent Morthak, she said with a respectful bow. I am Jiwan, Minister of Science. I understand your colonies have been struggling with energy production. Our energy situation is not your concern, Morthak said stiffly. Actually, it is, Jiwan replied gently. You see, we believe that all civilizations should have access to clean, unlimited energy. It's a basic requirement for a peaceful galaxy. She activated the device, and suddenly the air in the chamber filled with a warm, golden light. Energy readings that appeared on nearby screens showed power output levels that made the Velthari observers gasp. This generator produces more energy than your largest facilities, G1 explained. But it has no waste products, requires no fuel, and can be built using materials found on any planet. This is impossible, one of the council members whispered. Not impossible, G1 said with a smile. Just a different approach to the problem. Instead of forcing energy to work for us, we ask it politely. Energy, it turns out, is very cooperative when you treat it with respect. Morthak stared at the readings. If this technology was real, it could solve problems that had plagued Velthari civilization for centuries. Why would you share this with us? He asked suspiciously. Because it's the right thing to do, Dongyun answered simply. We believe that knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. The galaxy is a better place when everyone has what they need to thrive. They spent the next several hours being shown technologies that challenged everything the Velthari thought they knew about science. Communication systems that worked instantly across galactic distances, transportation methods that moved by cooperating with space instead of fighting it, medical techniques that healed by asking the body to remember what health felt like. How is any of this possible? Morthak finally asked. We learned from you, said a new voice. A young woman approached them, wearing the simple robes of a scholar. I am Suman, Earth's chief historian. Your people taught us the basics of advanced science 15,000 years ago. We've spent all that time learning and growing. But the speed of your development, one of the council members protested, it's unprecedented. We had good teachers, Suman replied, and we've always been good at taking an idea and finding ways to improve it. That's how humans work. We learn, we adapt, we make things better. Morthak was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him since he arrived. What do you want from us? Your friendship, Dongyan said simply. Your guidance. Your partnership. Partnership? We're new to being a galactic civilization, Jiwan explained. We make mistakes. We move too fast sometimes. We could benefit from the wisdom of a people who have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. And in return, we share everything we've learned, Suman said. Our technologies, our discoveries, our perspectives. We work together to make the galaxy a better place for all species. As the meeting concluded, Morthak found himself facing a decision that would reshape galactic civilization. The humans were offering technologies that could revolutionize life for every species in the galaxy. But they were also asking to be treated as equals, despite being newcomers to space travel. We will need time to consider your proposal, he said finally. Of course, Donghyun replied. But Regent, there's something you should know. What? We've already been accepted as members of the Galactic Council by 47 different species. They've seen what we can offer, and they've decided that cooperation is better than competition. Morthak felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. If the humans were already established as a galactic power, then the Velthari had to choose between cooperation and irrelevance. We formally request admission to the Galactic Council as a full member species, Dongyun continued. We hope the Velthari will support our application. 3 days later, Morthak stood before the assembled Galactic Council, preparing to make a speech that would change everything. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of different species, all waiting to hear what the Velthari had decided. Fellow council members, he began, we have completed our investigation of the human species. Our findings are surprising. He paused, looking out at the diverse gathering of galactic civilizations. The humans represent something new in our galaxy, a species that has advanced not through conquest or exploitation, but through cooperation and innovation. They have taken the knowledge we shared with them and used it to benefit not just themselves, but every species they have encountered. The chamber was completely quiet. The Velthari High Council formally supports the admission of humanity to the Galactic Council as a full member.